2024 is gone. 2025 is here. So, with the start of a new year, let's make it a creative one, shall we? Hello my friends, Rob here from Button Press Graphics, back with the first video of 2025, and Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year's Eve, of course, but let's get back into the creative swing of it. Today I'm going to be going over how you can create a simple design with a ribbon effect around it. So without further ado, let's get started. Now what I'm going to do first is select my squares and rectangles tool, and then I'm just going to create a box going down like so. Something around there looks good to me. And before we go any further, I'm going to convert it to a path by going to Path, Object to Path. Alternatively, you can hold Shift, Control and press C in order to convert it to a path. Now using my Select tool, I'm going to make sure that it's the right size that I want. And going vertically, this is around the size that I am aiming for. But I do not need the stroke, so I'm going to come down to the bottom left corner, click the X while holding Shift, and that takes the stroke away. Next, I want to get a point. So I want to use the point at the bottom. Now in order to do that, I have just double clicked the shape to get myself to the node tool. And as you can see, we have the 4 standard nodes. Well, I'm going to highlight with the bounding box around the bottom 2, and then come up to the top left corner and select this button to add an extra node. Now with that done, I'm going to select the canvas so I can deselect all 3 nodes at the same time, and then just select the center one, and then holding Control, I'm going to drag it downwards until I get a convincing point. So this is going to be the point of the pencil. On the top end, I am going to select these 2 nodes and create a rounded edge. You can simply come over to your Add Corners LPE button right here on the Properties toolbar. Give that a select and then highlight the top 2 nodes. With that done, you can move one of these little circle nodes and you can round the corner perfectly, just like this. Now we're looking for a round-ish kind of end for the rubber that would normally appear on the end of the pencil. And with that done, I'm going to convert it into a path again, Path, Object to Path. And now we have our main shape. Now of course, when it comes to a rubber, there is normally a little metal clip that holds the rubber on top of the pencil, and it normally has a little bump on either side. So I'm going to add those little bumps right now. Again, I'm going to use the squares and rectangles tool, and I'm going to just create a box like this. And now I'm going to use my Select tool and make sure that it is the right size. And I'm just going to zoom in so I can see better. And that looks around perfect to me, but we're going to convert the edges of this as well. By going back to my squares and rectangles tool, I'm going to curve both ends with this little circle at the corner. And as you can see, it's not quite the bump that I'm looking for. So I can come back to my Select tool, and then holding Shift, I can increase the size until I get the bumps that I want on either side. And then just to make sure that it's lined up correctly, I am also going to hold Shift, select the one behind it, and I'm going to open up my Align and Distribute menu. That can be found right here at the bottom right corner. Selecting that, I can now center it up by selecting Last Selected from the drop down and clicking this button right here. And now I can select the canvas to deselect everything. and just select this shape on its own. And now again, I will be able to just right click, duplicate, and then drag this down slightly. I'm just going to zoom out so I can get the full picture, and something around there will be perfect. Now we pretty much have our entire shape of the pencil, or at least the silhouettes for it. So now I'm just going to Control and A to select everything, and then go to Path, Union. Now it is all one shape. Now next, I'm just going to add the shapes on top. This means two lines coming across where these bumps are, the shape in between, the shape for the rubber on top, and then the three rectangles coming down, and then again the end of the pencil right here. In order to do all of this, I am simply going to use the pen tool, and I'm just going to draw like I normally would. Now it's worth mentioning, you do not need to be perfect at all when it comes to doing this bit. You can actually get away with doing a very rough design, and it will add to the overall effect later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, change this background to black. Now when it comes to this design, I'm just going to be using grey tones. So in order to do that, I am going to just select all of these shapes that I've just created and make sure that they are varying different shades of grey. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to change the background to black. And there you go, we now have a makeshift pencil. Now, of course, I just want to tidy up this section down below here. I just want to make sure that I can reduce these gaps a little bit so there's not as much black there. And there you go. As you can see, very, very quickly, we have made a grayscale pencil. So that is pretty much that bit done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. And now with everything selected, I am going to hold Control, press G, and that is going to group everything together. Now using my select tool, I can move this off to one side and come back to it when I am ready. But now we're going to concentrate on the ribbon. The ribbon is not as difficult as you may first think. It is remarkably easy to do if you follow these steps. So first we are going to go back to our squares and rectangles tool again, and we are going to just create a ribbon that we want to use. So to begin with, I want to have 3 layers, and it's going to be a spiraling layer. So let's create the first one. It doesn't need to be very wide, but it needs to be wide enough that when we skew it later, it is going to look fairly convincing. And that looks around perfect to me. Now, of course, we still have these little curved corners. Now, that is perfectly fine if that's the look you're going for. And I think that I will personally keep them like that myself. But you do not need to if you don't want to. You can have a completely straight edge. But as I said, this will work either way. So now we have our shape. What I'm going to do with this is I'm simply going to convert this to a path by going to Path, Object to Path. And now I'm going to use my Select tool, and we're going to make sure that it's central. And I'm going to duplicate this. Now you can right click and select duplicate, or you can simply Control and D to duplicate it. But once you have the duplicate, as you can see, I've got mine here. We are going to select it a second time to get the rotation handles up. Now holding Shift and Alt at the same time, if we select the left hand skew node, this one right here, and then come down, it will snap down in increments, as you can see. And we're just going to take it down one step to exactly where it is there. And now we have two shapes looking remarkably like this. Now, in order to get the ribbon to do what we need, we first need to select both of these shapes, and then we are going to duplicate. So Control and D, and I'm going to just hold Control and then drag this down. And at this point, we will need snapping. So I'm going to go up to the top right corner, turn snapping on, and then I'm just going to snap this onto this section right here. So it snaps on to the bottom left part of the second shape. Now what I'm looking for here is that there is a smooth curve here. If you have sharp corners, then it's not going to matter as long as the corners both snap with each other. But because I have a curve, if I come up, as you can see, it comes down and then bumps out, and that is not what we want. So now that we have that, we're going to do it one more time. We're going to Control D and then scroll down holding Control, check that we have the curve, and there we go. But now we do not need this bottom slanted piece, so we can select that and hit delete to get rid of it. Now when it comes to these 5 shapes, the first thing I'm going to be doing is selecting the back 2 pieces that are at an angle. These 2 right here. I'm going to select one, hold shift, select the other, and then I'm going to go to Path, Union, and I'm also going to hit this button right here, which means lower the selection to the bottom. Now when it comes to these 3 pieces on top, I am going to create another shape over the top. This is going to be the face of the ribbon. Like I suggested earlier, these do not have to be perfect, but it will help you if you are just randomizing the shape on the top. So first, what I'm going to do is I am going to select all 3 of these by holding shift and selecting them all. And then I am going to make these a lighter gray, and I'm going to turn snapping off as well because that will get in the way. And now I'm just going to come down and I'm going to create a shape with quite a lot of different angles. I do not want these lines to be completely straight. Something like that looks about perfect to me. And I'm going to make this shape a very light grey as well. So something around there, around 10% grey, that looks good to me. I am also going to turn off the stroke, holding shift, pressing the red X. And now I am just going to copy this shape and layer it over the top of these bottom 2 pieces as well. So again, duplicate by Control D and then keeping your finger on the Control button and dragging down. And again, Control and D and drag down. Now, in order to break them up a little bit, you can add more nodes or take nodes away, or I'm just going to take this center one and I'm just going to come up to the top properties toolbar with my select tool and select this one just to switch it around so they don't all look the same. Now, in order to get these to look more cohesive, we are just simply going to zoom in, select the shape behind them, and we're going to turn them black. And now we have something that looks a little bit like this. But we can do one more thing to make sure this looks a little bit more convincing. And that is by adding a little bit of a tail on each end. So on this top left end right here, and this bottom right here, we can add a point which makes it look more like a ribbon. And to do this, we just do it in exactly the same way that we made the tip of the pencil. Zoom in, select the black shape, and then we are going to go to our node tool, and between these two end nodes right here, we are going to select them both, and then select this button right here which says insert new nodes into selected segments. Give that a click, and now we have our third node. So with that done, we can select off it to deselect everything. Then using a bounding box, we're going to select these two nodes right here, hold shift, and we can select these two nodes. And now with them all selected, we can just simply hold control and drag these away. We don't need to do it too much. Around there will be absolutely fine. And then finally, we're going to just select all of the nodes at the end and just move them all out just a little bit more. So we've got an extra little bit here. Now, when it comes to this piece right here, we're just going to repeat exactly the same method. Select both two end nodes, add a new node in the middle, deselect everything, and then select both of these, holding shift, and then holding control, we can move them away. And again, all three, move them away again. Now, the reason I'm doing it separately in this way is because that way, when you deselect everything, you can then move them around and you can give them more of a dynamic feel rather than grouping them together and doing it that way. So now we have something that looks like this, and we're just going to do the opposite on the opposite end. So instead of cutting a triangle into it like here, instead of coming in, we are going to extend it out. So I can select all of the nodes, drag them out just ever so slightly, deselect everything, select the two end nodes, add one in between, deselect everything again, and then add this like so. And I'm just going to also make sure that once I have done that, I can delete these two nodes right here because we are not going to need them. Delete and delete. And then I'm just going to make this again a little bit more dynamic, a little bit of a curve. It doesn't have to be much. And then we're going to do the same with these. We're going to drag them, select them all, drag them away. But for this one, we don't need to add a new node. I'm just going to select this one after deselecting everything, bring that down, and then delete this one, like so. And there we go. We now have a ribbon, just like that. Now we need to put something on that ribbon. Now I have got a little slogan pre-prepared that I'm going to use because why not? So in order to get my font menu open, I'm first going to go right here. And now with my font menu open, I'm going to select the text tool on the left hand side, select anywhere on the canvas in order to get the flashing cursor up. And then I'm going to write my slogan. So as you can see, now I have my text. I can simply change to a font that I want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Rubik Bold Italic. Now this is a font that I think just works remarkably well. So what I'm going to do before anything else is I'm going to make sure that this text has been converted into a path. Now I'm going to do that by going to Path, Object to Path, and then with that done, I'm going to go to Object and Ungroup. This is going to ungroup all of the text into its individual lines, which is exactly what I need. And as you can see, we have 3 lines and 3 bits of ribbon. So we are going to use our select tool, and I'm going to decrease the size just slightly, and then move that over the top. Now I'm just going to use the top line, this one right here, to see what the size looks like over the top part of the ribbon, because we want the text to all remain the same size. So I'm going to do that, and I think that looks quite good around there. And then I can deselect off everything, and now we know that the text is all the same size. We can place the others exactly where we want them to go. And something like that looks perfect to me. Now finally, we just have to put everything together. So I'm going to select over everything right here, and I'm going to group it all together. With it grouped together, I am now going to skew it ever so slightly. Now we can do this by selecting it again and using these arrows right here on the left hand side and the top. And as you can see, as we skew it, the text will also skew alongside it. Now this is where you can decide which direction you like, and once you have, you will find that the skew is good, but it is very straight. It's not very dynamic. So this is where you would rotate ever so slightly to something like this. Now I think that is pretty good, so I'm going to use that and keep it exactly where it is. But first we're going to need to ungroup everything again. We can do that by going back to Object and Ungroup, and now we come back to our pencil. Now the pencil is going to be slightly rotated as well. So I'm going to select this, get it pretty central, and then select it again and rotate it slightly like so. And now with that done, we can just increase the level right here, raise selection one step, and it will automatically go above the two black pieces at the back and behind this ribbon that we've already created. And there you have it, my friends. You've now created a ribbon around an object very quickly, like so. Did you know that you can become a member of the Button Press Graphics YouTube channel? Well, now you do. You will get a lot of added benefits, and you will directly support the channel, enabling me to make much better content in the future. Also, you can send in your artwork into the Creative Corner. This is a regular section where I will showcase your work in a future video. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to bid you all a fond farewell, and I will see you next time.